Imagine you're flipping through channels. It's 1994.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Setting the scene.
Yeah, so you're clicking past the polished, million-dollar sets of late-night talk shows. You click past the heavily stylized neon glow of MTV.
Which was huge back then.
Oh, massive. But suddenly, you hit what feels like a pirate signal.
A pirate signal.
Exactly. It's this grainy, horribly lit broadcast of a 14-year-old kid sitting in his incredibly messy bedroom in Manhattan, and he's just casually playing Mortal Kombat with international action superstar Jackie Chan.
It's so surreal to even picture.
Right. And this isn't a prank. It's not some scripted sketch comedy bit. I mean, it is the exact, precise moment that modern internet media culture was accidentally born.
It really is a profound disruption of the accepted timeline. Because we have this tendency, especially today, to assume that the architecture of our modern media—
Oh, like the vloggers and stuff?
Yeah, the YouTube vloggers, the massive Twitch streams, all those parasocial podcast empires— we assume all of that was deliberately engineered.
Like it was planned out.
Exactly. We assume it was sketched out in some glass-walled Silicon Valley boardroom, in the mid-2000s by a group of venture capitalists and algorithm designers.
Right, right. You think of it as a skyscraper, something meticulously planned, tested, and built from the ground up just to capture our attention.
But the truth is much stranger.
It really is. Because when you actually dig into the historical record, that glass boardroom just shatters. The architect of the media landscape you consume every single day wasn't a tech billionaire. It was a teenager named Jake Fogelnest.
It's just wild to think about.
Truly wild. So welcome to the Deep Dive. We are incredibly excited you're here with us for this one. Today we're stepping into a time machine to examine this total anomaly.
A 1990s public access television show called Squirt TV.
Yes. Squirt TV. And to help us decode how this messy bedroom experiment laid the groundwork for the 21st century, we're pulling from this fascinating stack of sources.
We've got some really great material today.
We do. First, we have a raw TV time database log. And this gives us the hard, undeniable data.
The dates, the episodes.
Yeah, the exact run dates, the episode breakdowns, and a guest list that, honestly, it looks like a typo.
It really does. It doesn't make any sense.
No sense at all. And alongside that quantitative data, we are diving into the qualitative cultural memory. We have a highly active Reddit thread from the community r/obscure media.
Which is such a great corner of the internet.
Oh, it's the best. It's essentially a gathering place for digital archaeologists who, dig up lost VHS rips and forgotten broadcasts.
And they are meticulously analyzing the show's legacy.
Right. With a really heavy focus on a completely unhinged 1996 interview Fogelnest conducted with the filmmaker Kevin Smith.
Which we will absolutely get into.
Oh, we have to. And to tie the data and the nostalgia together, we're using a brilliant, deeply researched cultural analysis article titled Squirt TV, the bedroom prototype for modern media culture.
So we have the hard data, the fan memory, and the academic analysis.
Exactly. Because our mission today isn't just to reminisce about an obscure, quirky public access show. I mean, if we do that, we miss the point entirely.
We completely miss the bigger picture.
Right. Our goal is to figure out how this teenager's unscripted, chaotic project established the exact blueprint for influencer culture, decades before the technology even existed to support it.
It's a fascinating mission.
Okay, let's unpack this, because I want you to hold an image in your head. Just imagine if today's biggest, most chaotic Twitch streamer—
the kind that thrives on raw, unedited live energy.
Yeah, exactly.
Hmm.
Imagine if they were suddenly stripped of the internet.
Yeah.
And they had to somehow force their messy bedroom stream onto traditional, rigid, heavily gated 1990s cable television. Like, how does that even happen?
Well, what's fascinating here is to understand how it happens, you really have to understand the sheer weight of the institutional authority that television held in the early 1990s.
Right, because it wasn't like today.
Not at all. We are talking about an era of broadcast culture, not network culture. Television was literally a fortress.
A total walled garden.
Exactly. To get on the air, you needed immense capital. You needed permission from corporate gatekeepers.
You needed, unions and lighting directors and PR reps.
Yes, highly controlled PR environments. It was an exclusive one-way street of communication. So when a viewer at home stumbled across Squirt TV on public access, it looked like television had escaped containment.
It looked like a glitch in the Matrix.
It really did. It was broadcasting from inside the house. It wasn't just a quirky program. It was a crucial, massive evolutionary mutation in the language of media.
Wow, a mutation.
Yeah, it was essentially the localized beta test for what Web 2.0 would eventually become.
I love that framing. A localized beta test. But before we can get into the massive cultural ripples, we need to look at the literal physical space this show occupied.
The actual bedroom?
Yes, we have to examine the anatomy of a pirate signal. Because, I mean, you don't just wake up in 1994, hit a button, and go live to the world. That didn't exist.
No, the physical logistics are entirely intertwined with why the show felt so revolutionary. You couldn't just upload a video. You had to interface with physical media.
You needed physical infrastructure.
Exactly.
So let's look at the origins laid out in our sources. It's 1994. Jake Fogelnest is 14 years old.
Just 14.
Yeah. He teams up with a guy named Frankie Tartaglia, who acts as his co-host and head writer. And they managed to secure a slot on Manhattan public access television.
Which is a whole process in itself.
Oh, totally. Now, for anyone who didn't grow up with public access, this meant they literally had to shoot the show on cheap, consumer-grade VHS cameras.
The big clunky ones.
Right. And then physically take those heavy tapes down to the studio and have them broadcast over the local cable network.
It was incredibly labor-intensive.
And the setting for all of this. Fogelnest's actual bedroom.
Which is the most important part.
It is. We're talking terrible lighting, posters haphazardly taped to the wall, a perpetually unmade bed.
Jump cuts?
Oh, man, the awkward jump cuts. And this very distinct, unfocused teenage aggression.
Well, the psychology of that bedroom setting is what we really need to pause on. The cultural analysis article explores this beautifully through the lens of parasocial bonding.
Okay, tell me more about that.
So, when you, as a viewer, look at a traditional news desk or a late-night couch, your brain immediately registers it as a performance space.
Right, you know it's a sad.
Exactly. Your skepticism remains intact. You know you are being sold something. But when you are suddenly looking into a messy, private, intimate space,
Like a kid's bedroom.
like a teenager's bedroom,
Yeah.
your brain bypasses those corporate media filters. It disarms you. It creates an immediate, albeit artificial, sense of intimacy.
Oh, wow. It feels like you just walked into your buddy's house after school.
Precisely. And in the mid-90s, the gold standard for youth culture media was MTV.
Right. MTV was everything.
MTV was certainly selling a rebellious, grunge-infused aesthetic, but as the article points out, it was focus-grouped, professionally packaged rebellion.
It was a multi-million-dollar corporation pretending to be gritty.
Exactly. Squirt TV was the actual grime. There was no artifice because they literally couldn't afford artifice.
Okay, but this is where I have to stop you and push back on the physical logistics of
Awesome.
this. Because I understand the DIY bedroom setup, I understand public access, but I am looking at the TV Time database log for the guest list, and my brain is short-circuiting.
The guest list is unbelievable.
It makes no sense. You picture a 14-year-old's public access show, and you assume the guests are like his geometry teacher or maybe the guy who runs the corner bodega.
Great local people.
Yeah, but listen to this collision of human beings who somehow walked into this kid's bedroom. We mentioned Jackie Chan.
Global superstar.
Then you have comedy legends. Adam Sandler, Jeanine Garofalo, Rob Schneider, Scott Thompson, and Kevin McDonald from The Kids in the Hall.
It's an absurd lineup.
It gets crazier. You have these massive, era-defining musical acts. Cypress Hill, The Fugees, Bickes alongside Mike D from the Beastie Boys,
Just casually hanging out.
Les Claypool, Liz Phair, Cibo Matto with Sean Lennon, the Wesley Willis fiasco, who was this legendary outsider artist.
I know, it sounds fake.
How does a 14-year-old in a pre-internet world book Beck and Jackie Chan? What is the physical transaction that makes an international action star walk into a random Manhattan apartment?
It's mind-boggling.
It would be like a high school freshman today casually getting Christopher Nolan and Kendrick Lamar to sit on their unmade bed for a Tuesday afternoon sociology project. It shouldn't be physically possible.
It seems entirely impossible from our modern, highly sanitized vantage point.
Totally.
But you have to understand the very specific cultural intersection of New York City in the mid-1990s. We're talking about a post-grunge era steeped in heavy irony and cynicism toward corporate media.
Right. Everyone hated selling out.
Exactly. The alternative zine culture of the 80s had evolved, but the core ethos remained. authenticity was the highest currency. And crucially, the boundaries between the concept of celebrity and the general public were wildly porous compared to today.
Meaning they weren't surrounded by heavily armed PR teams checking every question in advance.
Exactly that. Today, a celebrity's image is micromanaged down to the pixel. In 1994, there was no social media.
No Twitter, no Instagram.
Right. So if an artist wanted to tap into the authentic underground or maintain their downtown credibility, they had to physically go there. They had to interact with it.
Oh, that makes sense.
Playing along with a bizarre zero-budget public access show in Manhattan gave artists like Beck or the Fugees a specific kind of cultural cachet.
It made them look grounded.
Yes, it signaled that they didn't take themselves too seriously, that they were still connected to the raw DIY spirit of the street.
Oh, I see. It's like a flex. Like, look how cool and untouchable I am. I can literally go sit on a teenager's bed and talk about my multi-platinum album, and it doesn't damage my brand. It actually enhances it.
That is the exact psychological transaction. And the cultural analysis article coins a term for this that is vital for our discussion: access as entertainment.
Access is entertainment.
Right. The draw of Squirt TV for the viewer at home wasn't traditional celebrity journalism. It wasn't Barbara Walters trying to make a star cry through deep emotional probing.
Obviously not.
The entertainment value came entirely from the spectacle of access. The sheer novelty that this normal, incredibly awkward kid had somehow corralled these titans of pop culture into his personal space.
That's so weird to think about.
But think about the massive YouTube channels today. How many of them are built entirely on the premise of, look which famous person I got to hang out with me in my garage?
Oh my gosh, all of them.
Yeah.
Literally all of them.
Fogelnest was pioneering that exact psychological hook, proving that the juxtaposition of high-status celebrity and low-status environment is inherently captivating.
It's the ultimate contrast. But having the access is only half the battle.
True.
This is where we need to dive into the actual mechanics of the show. The magic, and honestly, the very real danger of Squirt TV lay in how Fogelnest actually talked to these massive stars once he had them trapped in his bedroom.
Trapped is a very accurate description, because what he executed was nothing short of weaponized awkwardness.
I love that phrase from the article. Weaponized awkwardness. Let's really get into the art of the ambush interview.
It's fascinating.
Because if a 14-year-old today got a celebrity in their room, they would probably fawn all over them. They'd ask them about their inspiration, their favorite color, whatever.
They'd play it safe.
Exactly. Fogelnest did the exact opposite.
He essentially asked every single question that adults are socially conditioned not to ask. He interrupted his guests constantly. He created deliberate, excruciating tension.
He was so uncomfortable.
Completely blurred the lines between genuine sincerity and outright mockery.
Yeah.
It was anti-comedy in its purest, most volatile form.
The Reddit thread from awar/obscure media is just a goldmine for dissecting this dynamic.
They really break it down.
They do.
Yeah.
You have these digital historians looking back at the surviving VHS footage, and they are just astounded by the sheer nerve of this kid.
I don't blame them.
There's one specific episode that the thread fixates on, and we have to break it down. It's the Kevin Smith interview from March of 1996.
Oh, that interview is legendary.
One Reddit user literally commented, "The balls on this kid." Because I watched the clip based on these sources, and what blew my mind wasn't just the questions he asked, it was the absolute subversion of the power dynamic.
Walk us through the specific beats of that interview, because it perfectly illustrates the shift from broadcast tradition to internet chaos.
Okay, so picture this. Kevin Smith is sitting there. It's a 1996, so he is riding high.
Right. He's the ultimate indie film darling, the Clerks guy.
Exactly. He expects a certain kind of reverent, cinephile conversation.
Literally.
But Fogelnest starts off by aggressively challenging Smith's cinematic tastes. He asks him about his favorite director in a tone that implies whoever Smith picks is going to be wrong.
Setting a trap immediately.
Yes. Then, cutting through all the usual talk show small talk, he just bluntly demands to know what Smith actually has to plug.
Stripping away the illusion.
He strips away the illusion of a friendly chat and exposes the transactional nature of the interview immediately.
He points out the artifice of the promotional tour.
Exactly. But the peak moment, the moment that left the Reddit users absolutely dying of laughter, was when Fogelnest creates this dead silence, looks at Kevin Smith, and flat out asks him when he started having sex.
And this is where the weaponization of silence comes in. You have to visualize the physics of the room.
The physical space.
Right. A 14-year-old boy has effectively cornered a grown man, an acclaimed director on public television, demanding details about his virginity. The traditional talk show contract has been completely obliterated.
You can physically see Kevin Smith shrinking into his chair.
He had no idea what to do.
He has no idea how to compute the situation. Because if he gets mad, he looks like a bully attacking a child.
Right.
If he answers seriously, he looks ridiculous. Fogelnest trapped him in a no-win scenario, and he did this to everyone.
It wasn't an isolated incident.
Not at all. Another Reddit user, RobMan21, brought up the Liz Phair episode.
Also a fantastic example.
Liz Phair was an absolute rock icon at this time, known for her deeply provocative lyrics. And Fogelnest just casually looks at her and asks how far she had ever gone with a guy.
The audacity.
And her response is this incredibly uncomfortable, almost panicked, well, I married Sue.
Wow.
It is pure, concentrated cringe. But it's magnetic. You cannot look away.
You really can't.
And then, of course, the Jackie Chan episode. Jackie Chan is supposedly there to do a massive promotional push for Rumble in the Bronx, which was a huge deal.
A massive movie.
And what actually happens? Fogelnest hands him a controller, and they just sit there playing the video game Mortal Kombat against each other.
The analytical breakdown of this is fascinating. What Fogelnest was doing was forcing a collision between two incompatible worlds.
Right.
When you invite a celebrity onto a talk show, there is an established script. The host asks a setup question. The celebrity tells a charming pre-rehearsed anecdote. The audience claps.
Very predictable.
Exactly. By forcing Jackie Chan to play Mortal Kombat, Fogelnest shatters the promotional contract. He forces the celebrity to react in real time as a normal human being, rather than as a PR avatar.
You see the real person.
And the humor for the audience didn't come from punchlines. It wasn't set up, punchline, laugh. The humor came entirely from profound uncertainty.
The viewer is sitting on their couch at home watching this, and their brain is spinning.
Trying to figure out what's real.
Right. You're asking yourself, is this kid terrified? Is he an evil genius? Is he actively trying to humiliate his guest? Does he even know who Liz Phair is?
It echoes the brilliance of someone like Andy Kaufman. Now, several Reddit users in our sources, specifically Highland Hall and Droidtron, immediately draw parallels to Wayne's World.
Oh, I can see that.
They refer to Squirt TV as a real-life Wayne's World. But the cultural analysis article makes a vital, crucial distinction here that we need to emphasize. Wayne's World was a polished, highly scripted, heavily rehearsed Saturday Night Live satire of public access.
Oh, right. It was fake.
It was Mike Myers, a professional millionaire comedian pretending to be a goofy amateur. Squirt TV was the actual, terrifyingly real thing. There was no safety net. There was no script coordinator off camera to save the interview if it bombed.
Here's where it gets really interesting to me. That lack of polish, that terrifying reality, that wasn't the flaw. That was his absolute superpower.
Oh, absolutely.
Fogelnest wasn't professional enough to know that he was supposed to fear these celebrities.
Yeah.
He didn't have a publicist whispering in his ear about approved talking points.
He just didn't care.
He treated A-list, multi-platinum artists the exact same way you would treat an annoying older sibling who walked into your room without knocking and wouldn't leave.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, this ambush comedy and this deeply chaotic, confrontational interview style is the exact unedited DNA of modern internet culture.
It totally is.
Think about the massive podcast networks and YouTube channels today. Think about shows like Hot Ones. What is the entire premise of that show?
You strip away the Hollywood veneer by forcing the actor to eat violently spicy chicken wings until they start crying and forget their PR training.
Exactly. Or think about the countless live streamers who pull celebrities onto their streams just to troll them in video games.
Oh yeah, that happens all the time.
Ask yourselves as you listen to this, what stands out to you about that dynamic? Isn't it fascinating that the highest form of entertainment today involves actively trying to make the polished elite look foolish or uncomfortable in a casual setting?
We love seeing them squirm.
We crave the destruction of the PR facade. We want to see the real person underneath the media training. Fogelnest was executing that exact psychological maneuver 30 years ago, using nothing but sheer teenage audacity and a cheap camera.
He absolutely was. He figured out the cheat code to authenticity. But of course, when you generate that kind of raw, dangerous, undeniably magnetic energy, you don't stay a local secret for long.
No, you inevitably attract attention.
You become an underground legend.
Yeah.
And when you become an underground legend in the mid-1990s, the suits come knocking.
The corporate world smells the blood in the water.
Which brings us to a really fascinating pivot point in our sources. The MTV paradox.
The corporatization of a pirate signal.
Exactly. So, it's 1996. Squirt TV is generating incredible buzz. According to the Deep Dive Reddit thread, Jake had parlayed this buzz into some brief programming hosting gigs for Fox and Comedy Central.
Getting a foot in the door.
But landing an actual show on MTV, that was the main event. MTV decided they wanted to buy this raw energy.
There is a comment from the Reddit user Dianetics LRH that perfectly encapsulates the absurdity of this corporate acquisition.
Oh, I loved that comment.
They wrote a hypothetical script for how this went down.
Let me read it. They wrote, MTV executive. All right, we're ready to greenlight a show. It features a teenage boy interviewing middle-aged men in his bedroom, and we'll call it Squirt. People in the room with him. Brilliant.
It's a hilarious distillation of the corporate mindset trying to harness youth culture.
It's so funny because it's probably true.
But the reality of that acquisition was incredibly stark. Because the outcome, as noted emphatically by another Reddit user, Kestmandum, was that the show died a quick death once it hit the MTV airwaves.
Oof.
It did not translate.
Okay, wait, I have to challenge that narrative a bit. I understand the whole corporate suits ruin everything trope.
Yeah.
But we are talking about MTV in 1996.
Right.
This wasn't some stodgy conservative boardroom. This was the network that aired Beavis and Butthead. They had the real world. They were about to launch Jackass.
Very edgy programming.
They thrived on grunge, rebellion, and anti-establishment rhetoric. They literally built their empire on the alternative 90s aesthetic. Why on earth couldn't they figure out how to harness one smart kid in a bedroom?
It is a great question. And to answer it, we have to go back to the distinction between broadcast culture and network culture.
Okay, lay it out.
MTV loved the aesthetic of rebellion, but their physical infrastructure was entirely rigid. MTV had immense overhead. They had massive production budgets, union crews, guaranteed advertising blocks, and scheduled programming grids.
It was a machine.
A massive machine.
Yeah.
When you take a 14-year-old kid who thrives on chaos and put him on a public access channel at 2 a.m., it works because there are zero stakes and zero overhead.
Right.
But the moment MTV buys it, they have to professionalize it to justify the investment.
They can't just let him turn on a camcorder. They have to send a crew.
Exactly. The moment you bring a professional lighting director into a messy bedroom, it ceases to be a bedroom. It becomes a set.
Oh, that completely changes the vibe.
The original public access show worked precisely because it felt illegal. It felt unstable, like you were tuning into a frequency you weren't supposed to have access to. It was dangerous.
Right.
Once MTV absorbed it, they applied schedules, they applied act breaks for commercials. They undoubtedly had producers suggesting which celebrities to book based on album release cycles.
They sanitized it.
It became more visible, yes, but it became entirely less dangerous. You cannot manufacture the threat of the unknown on a multi-million-dollar corporate schedule.
That makes total sense. It is the ultimate paradox.
Yeah.
The thing that made it valuable was the fact that it wasn't professional.
Exactly.
It reminds me exactly of when your favorite gritty, super underground indie punk band finally signs to a major record label.
Oh, that's a perfect comparison.
The label executives sit them down and say, "We love your raw, dirty sound. Don't change a single thing." And then immediately they fly the band to a $10 million studio in Los Angeles, pair them with a pristine pop producer.
And completely ruin them.
And suddenly the band's new album sounds entirely overproduced, hollow, and completely soulless. The magic was in the grime. You clean up the grime, you lose the magic.
That analogy hits a nail on the head. The cultural analysis article explores this through the lens of the universal cycle of underground movements.
The cycle.
It is an inescapable gravity. Punk rock inevitably becomes high street fashion. Indie cinema inevitably becomes a marketing aesthetic for car commercials.
It always happens.
And most importantly for our deep dive today, DIY basement culture inevitably becomes monetized authenticity. MTV recognized the absolute genius of what Fogelnest was doing.
They saw the potential.
They knew he had his finger on the pulse of a new kind of communication. They wanted that rawness. But their structural reality demanded deliverables. They tried to artificially preserve the danger while making it safe for Pepsi commercials.
Which you just can't do.
It is an oxymoron. It resulted in a fundamentally unstable product, professional amateurism.
Professional amateurism. It's doomed from the start. And just to close the loop on Jake Fogelnest's story before we move to the wider implications, because it is important to acknowledge the human being at the center of this cultural mutation. He didn't just disappear after MTV. Based on our sources, specifically the deep dive in the Reddit thread, he had a very active career. He went on to become a host on Sirius Radio and a successful television writer and producer.
He stayed in the industry.
He did, but there is a very poignant detail brought up by a Reddit user named Nanika_Crash. They noted that Jake appeared on a WTF podcast years later, and he was incredibly open and candid about the severe struggles he faced during this exact period of adolescence.
Yes, the sources note he detailed dealing with serious heroin addiction as a teenager.
Wow.
Falling in with a crowd of older New York libertines during the height of his public access fame, and dating a much older woman, which apparently became a significant cause celeb in those downtown circles at the time.
We report that strictly to provide the full context of the source material, but it really underscores the intense psychological reality of thrusting a literal child into the epicenter of a cultural movement.
The pressure must have been immense.
You give a 14-year-old unprecedented access to rock stars, adults, and media executives without any of the guardrails of modern child star infrastructure, and the human toll is inevitably going to be incredibly heavy.
It is a stark reminder that while we analyze this as a media phenomenon, it was lived experience for a teenager trying to navigate an incredibly fast-paced adult world.
Absolutely.
But returning to the structural legacy of the show itself, while there is a tragedy to the quick death of the MTV iteration, it was also entirely inevitable. The 1990s television model simply could not sustain the format organically.
It was too rigid.
The infrastructure of cable was too heavy, too expensive, and far too risk-averse to let a teenager truly run wild. But while the mainstream MTV run was a brief blip, the cult legacy endured and festered in the underground.
People never forgot it.
Our sources note there was a 10th anniversary special in 2009, and obviously the very fact that there are active, highly populated Reddit threads dissecting his interviews decades later proves how deeply the specific frequency resonated with the people who were lucky enough to catch that original broadcast.
It left a permanent mark on the people who saw it. Which brings us to the grand finale here. The ultimate thesis of our deep dive.
This is the core of it all.
The corporate MTV version of Squirt TV may have failed in 1996, but that failure wasn't a dead end. That failure was actually a prophecy.
A glimpse of the future.
The world just had to wait nearly 3 decades for the physical technology.
Broadband internet, webcams, smartphones.
Exactly, to finally catch up to the ideas that Jake Fogelnest was pioneering in his bedroom.
He built the accidental blueprint for the internet we inhabit today.
Let's really synthesize the core argument of that cultural analysis article. The writer's thesis is that Fogelnest accidentally predicted the next 30 years of media consumption.
It's a bold claim, but it holds up.
And when you actually stack up the structural parallels between what he did in 1994 and what dominates our screens today, it is undeniably accurate.
Let's run through the mechanics of those parallels. Look at YouTube bedroom vloggers. That entire genre is predicated on the illusion of inviting the viewer into a private, uncurated space to foster trust.
Very Squirt TV.
Look at DIY podcasts, where the lack of traditional broadcast polish is exactly what signals to the audience that the conversation is authentic and uncensored.
Look at live stream interview culture on Twitch.
Exactly. Look at ironic meme editing, which mirrors his chaotic, jump cut, anti-comedy aesthetic.
It's the exact same vibe.
Look at the absolute dominance of parasocial broadcasting, where the audience feels a deeply personal, almost friendship-level connection to the host, entirely bypassing the critical distance we used to have with news anchors or late-night hosts.
It's all there. Every single piece of the modern internet ecosystem was present in that Manhattan apartment.
It really was.
Fogelnest proved the ultimate, undeniable formula of the 21st century media landscape. Personality beats polish, every single time. And authenticity, even if it's messy, awkward, and uncomfortable, can and will outperform sterile professionalism.
But we have to ask a crucial question here.
Okay, what's that?
Why could this specific phenomenon only have happened organically in the 1990s? If a 14-year-old with a camera tried to launch Squirt TV today, from their bedroom, the context and the outcome would be entirely fundamentally different.
Oh, completely different. Because if a kid did this today, it wouldn't be an accident. It wouldn't be a pirate signal.
Right.
It would instantly become a content strategy. They wouldn't be using a cheap VHS camcorder. They would have a 4K camera and a perfectly balanced ring light.
They'd have a team.
They would be checking their real-time analytics to see how the Kevin Smith clip is performing on the algorithm. They would have a carefully curated brand identity.
Everything would be calculated?
Their actual messy teenage personality would be algorithmically flattened to maximize engagement and watch time. Today, monetized irony isn't a rebellion. It is literally a multi-billion-dollar global industry.
And that is the absolute crux of the cultural analysis. Fogelnest stumbled into authenticity before authenticity was a product you could buy off a shelf.
He was just doing it.
He wasn't trying to hack a recommendation algorithm. He wasn't trying to build a sales funnel for merchandise. He was just a smart, aggressive kid with a camera who wanted to mess with Kevin Smith and play video games with Jackie Chan.
Just living in the moment.
That accidental quality, that pure, uncalculated, genuinely risky chaos is almost impossible to replicate in an era where every single person with a smartphone is hyper aware of being perceived and recorded at all times.
So what does this all mean? To me, the ultimate mind-bending irony of this entire story is looking at the modern media landscape right now.
It's pretty stark.
You have massive multinational media conglomerates. You have billionaire Twitch streamers. And what are they doing? They're spending millions and millions of dollars to build state-of-the-art broadcast studios that are meticulously, painstakingly designed by set decorators to look exactly like a messy, chaotic 14-year-old's bedroom.
It's so true.
They put fake vintage posters on the wall. They strategically place energy drink cans in the background. They are spending vast fortunes just to artificially fake the exact raw authenticity that Jake Fogelnest had for free.
This raises an important question, and it's something I want everyone listening to this to critically evaluate as they go about consuming their daily content.
Yeah, think about this.
We live in a network culture where millions of creators attempt to replicate this exact formula online every single minute of every single day. Amateurism itself has lost its original meaning. It has become an aesthetic currency.
Wow, aesthetic currency.
When you watch a TikTok video or a YouTube vlog that feels incredibly raw, unfiltered, and spontaneous today, you have to ask yourself, how much of that is genuine, uncalculated reality, and how much of it is a highly calculated, heavily produced performance of the exact blueprint Fogelnest created in 1994?
It completely changes how you look at your feed. You start seeing the invisible strings on everything that claims to be authentic.
You really do.
All right, to bring this all together, we started this deep dive talking about blueprints and architecture. We looked at Squirt TV, this incredibly eccentric, chaotic, short-lived 1990s public access show.
A true artifact.
And what we found was that it wasn't just a quirky, nostalgic footnote where a kid played Mortal Kombat with Jackie Chan or made Liz Phair visibly uncomfortable.
Although it was that, too.
It was.
Yeah.
But it was also the precise historical epicenter where the traditional top-down model of television began dissolving into the decentralized, personality-driven chaos we know today. It wasn't just a TV show. It was the foundational blueprint for the internet we currently live on.
It was the mutation that survived, adapted, and eventually conquered the host organism.
Beautifully put.
Yeah.
So we will leave you with this final provocative thought to mull over. We have just spent all this time exhaustively proving that a teenager with a cheap VHS camera in 1994 accidentally predicted the exact architecture of the media landscape in 2026.
Pretty wild to think about.
So what obscure, deeply weird, incredibly low-budget internet subculture exists right now? What strange, chaotic corner of the web are people laughing at or entirely ignoring today? That is secretly, quietly predicting exactly how we will all communicate, interact, and consume media 30 years from now in 2056.
The next bedtime broadcast is already happening right under our noses. We just haven't recognized the signal yet.
Thank you so much for joining us for this deep dive. Keep questioning the media landscape around you, keep looking for those hidden pirate signals, and we will catch you next time.